Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about some stuff.
Yeah, this is our Romance Gone Wrong series. It's the last episode of it.
We'll miss you.
Yeah,
Love.
a little bit. We'll never love again after this. This is our last time to love.
Done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a series, to say the least. I did not know we were going to go to the places that we did. It was an adventure.
I feel like that happens more often than not.
Yeah,
we're like, this is what this is going to be, and then we get there and we're like, well, this is not what that is.
Yeah.
But now it's this, so that's cool, I guess.
Yeah. We don't get paid to do this podcast. We have no sponsors, none of that. I mean, if you are one, hi, how's it going? But we don't have that. So we do this because we enjoy it. And I will say I'm really enjoying the challenges that we've come upon.
Oh, yeah, this has been, I think, my favorite series.
Yeah.
Like, I did very much enjoy New Year, New Me, but this has been significantly the most enjoyable because I felt the most.
Yeah.
Like a vampire, young and in love.
Yeah.
I really have felt a lot of emotions about this series.
Yeah, I think we have evolved. We are different. We are transformed.
Yeah.
Like monsters.
Like that, and then also New Year, New Us.
Yeah.
They all come full circle. Look at me now.
I hope you're enjoying it. And today we are talking, because we're ending it out. The last week we were talking about vampires and how they are like this epitome of love for monsters, right?
Yeah.
But there are other monsters to love. Or there are other instances where someone you love has become a monster. So we're talking about loving monsters.
And like this series, sometimes in life, when you least expect it,
love happens. And sometimes, even more unexpectedly, that person is a monster.
Yeah.
But love still happens.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's totally cool. Or you're like, whoa, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just see how this goes.
This is weird. I'm
convenient,
in for it.
Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about love and loving against all odds. Even when those odds are that the forest killed, impregnated, changed her wife, and now she's like gross and stuff.
Or this chick you knew for like 5 days is a lovecraftian 2,000-year-old murder squid person. But you're totally about it.
Yeah. Love happens.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Yeah, what I find interesting about the topic of like loving monsters is a lot of times we get comedies. Because this idea of loving someone even though they're like monstrous does become comedic. Mm-hmm. And so if you're thinking something like Warm Bodies or the end of Shaun of the Dead where he keeps his friend around even though he's a zombie, or the Santa Clarita Diet, which we'll touch upon a little bit, it becomes a safe space to talk about those things in a mundane way. Yeah. Whereas with horror, it's always so extreme and so intense that it's hard to approach it the right way. Mm-hmm. So it does tend to lean more towards being funny.
Well, yeah, because it's usually kind of like absurd in its own right. Yeah. But I guess you also like have that the line between quirky fun monster who's got a lot of weird stuff going on, but it's interesting. Mm-hmm. And like the person who I've loved forever, the love of my life, is now dead. And I don't know how to deal with that. So I love this now. Yeah. And it's real sad and upsetting. Because, like, my wife, though, or my husband, or, like, the person I was about, you know, they're gone, and I'm really upset. Yeah. So that's the sad, scary one. Yeah. Then you got the happy, fun times. My horrible thing is quirky and cool, and, like, look at me be all weird.
It's a metaphor for something that we're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's too uncomfortable, but it's okay that you eat people. It's fine. I love you, babe.
It's really good.
Yeah, I think...
I said forever.
So till death do us part, and if you're undead, I guess it still counts.
Because you can't control it. Love just, happens.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what is fun about it, is that we're taking, like, there is a way to make falling in love with a monster or loving someone who's become a monster something serious and use it to talk about some really serious things. Yeah. But it's also because of the fact that that's happening, it makes it a little quirky. It does make it a little, like, interesting, like kind of relatable in the fact that, like, most of us experience some level of otherness and being an outsider, and that these notions that, if even a monster can find love and be loved, kind of instills some hope.
So, like, I could find love and be loved. Or you could find love and be loved.
What? So we're going to explore what happens when you fall in love with a monster, and also what happens if someone you love has become a monster.
Yeah. How do you deal?
Facts. Yeah, facts. We tell you facts. All the facts. Here facts. Still facts. About that spooky stuff. Yeah, spooky stuff.
All right, so I'm going to tell you about fall in love with monsters, because there's a lot of history.
Good.
Especially in film with monsters in love, and it's evolved. And I would like to say that currently we're at a place where we can look at media and understand that it's trying to say something. And even if people didn't know that they were saying something previously, they were. Because that's just what happens when you create things and you live and exist in a time. You know, like you're going to be impacted by the world around you. And you're going to create literature and film that is a representation of the world that you live in.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly very much appreciate the people who, like, own up to the fact that they weren't trying to do that. And they're just like, oh, that's really cool. And so the people who were like, no, yeah, that's what I meant. Look how profound and great I am.
Diablo coding.
Where they're like, oops, I totally wasn't trying to do that, but that's so cool that, like, these people got all that really interesting and, like, depth to this thing that I made because I wanted to make it and I love what I'm doing. Whoa.
Anna Lilia Moore.
Yeah, exactly.
Two different films. Yeah. So we're talking about when you fall in love with a monster and the fact that this means something. So monsters in horror tend to serve as the other, or even in films, they are an other, right? They're the representation of an alluring, strange person who promises excitement, danger, and confusing emotions. Traditionally, the tale of someone who falls in love with a monster is usually represented by a woman who is gentle and kind as women are wont to be, and they're there to tame the wild beast with her heart and her ability to love, right? If you see like King Kong or Beauty and the Beast, you're getting the transformative power of empathy, which is as told by Maria Tartar, who explains the importance of learning empathy and humanity in fairy tales. Yeah. And you have to have this like pure, wholesome, good human woman to teach a monster that.
Yeah. I mean, I just really like the idea of empathy having so much power. I don't know if I love it always in like the way that it's done or like... Yeah. Or whatever, but like empathy is just such a great thing that needs to be taught to children and just everybody, because then you wouldn't hate your neighbor for being black, or like, you know, like hatred in general comes from like a lack of understanding and lack of empathy and not being able to see the side or perspective of somebody else. And it's so important.
Yeah, we fear what we don't know. And when you can't allow yourself to know and to put yourself into the shoes of another, that's when you have that fear and when you lash out. So you have to have a protagonist who is capable of doing that. Yeah. Which is, in literature and in history with film, generally is like a young white woman, usually, because she's supposed to be like the epitome of pure like life and love. We see in cinema how the woman is usually intrigued by the monster and knows that there is good beneath like this monstrous exterior. This is also why we have so many vampire romance novels with women staying despite their lovers telling them repeatedly of how dangerous they are. We can change them.
You can change them, guys. That's what it's saying. Everyone go out and change the world.
Change the monster. Like, this is what essentially monster films were saying before. If a woman was falling in love with a monster, it was with the intent of fixing them and changing them back to a human. Yeah. Whereas now we're getting films that are showing people loving a monster and they stay the monster because all along they were different and that's okay.
Yeah, like they aren't actually a monster. Lots of people see them as that way, but now there's a sense of empathy and understanding that like, no, like they're still beautiful. Yeah. The way that they are. And I see that and I'm in love now and it's great. Yeah. Look at me understand other things that are not like everything I saw growing up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, but like back in the day when you had these films, you would have these women who are soft and nurturing, and their purity juxtaposed the brutality of these beasts. Their purpose was to tame them. And historically in cinema, this has always been a loose metaphor for like racism or homophobia, or just like a misunderstanding with another being, someone who is different from you, right? It's essentially xenophobia in some way. And like when you think about like Creature from the Black Lagoon, or again King Kong, we have usually white women who are captured by these beasts. One of which is a beast from Africa. So already, just think about it. But then they have to be rescued by these brave white men.
Who aren't really that brave, who are just kind of like violent and terrible and like blowing stuff up that they shouldn't be doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Kidnapping thing, it's just a bad time.
Yeah. Like you kind of have like a veiled Birth of a Nation reimagining with that, where we just swap out blackface for a giant gorilla or a scaly creature that lives in the water that you shouldn't be in. Again, you're in areas that you probably shouldn't be. Yeah. But now we've kind of stepped away from that narrative and are now allowing people to fall in love with monsters, and it doesn't have to be
to fix them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be to fix them. You just love them for who they are. And when you're keeping, what I think is unique is that we're keeping the same idea that we are using the monster to represent the other. We're still using the monster to represent like a different race or the LGBTQ community or possibly like the disabled community. Like it's used to represent another, like someone who feels like an outsider. But instead of the narrative like we're fixing you, is that we're loving you. For who you are.
The idea that like you also have that in your soul, that like you don't feel loved or you don't feel like you're being accepted or all that fun stuff, and that like that's like the base human need is to like feel loved and be loved and have it not be like an issue. Like you got to change for it. You shouldn't have to change the person you're with. You should not have to fix them.
Yeah, and usually the protagonists in these new films generally again are women, and it's because instead of it being that we're pure and we can like understand because we're open with our emotions, it's that women can understand and empathize with the fact of being an other and being an outcast and being misunderstood and taken advantage of.
Because historically, that's just what's happening.
Exactly.
We used to not be people.
Yeah. We can empathize with these outcasts because we are also outcasts ourselves. We are capable of empathy due to our openness with emotions, and we can love someone for who they are inside, because we have the power to look past what people look like or what monsters look like. So when you take something like Shape of Water, contrasted against Creature from the Black Lagoon, Creature from the Black Lagoon was like, oh no, there's this monster, it's taking women away, right? In Shape of Water, we have a woman who's falling in love with a monster because she also is someone who can relate to that. She falls in love with the creature because she understands his otherness. She is mute and has felt like an outcast her entire life. There's a quote in there that's really beautiful where she signs to her friend, when he looks at me, he doesn't see how I am incomplete.
So beautiful.
It really is, right? And it's because he just sees her because he's different. He doesn't know what people are all supposed to look like. He's seen 3 people maybe. One is the actual monster of the story, which is the white man who's like abusing him, right? And then he sees her and she's kind and she's beautiful and she brings him eggs and she takes care of him and they have this connection. And later you find out that she really is other. She is very different. But just on like the basis of the fact that she has been discriminated against. So you have someone who is differently abled, who has been treated as such, now identifying with someone who is also like cast aside and seen as different. Yeah. So when women fall in love with monsters, they are falling in love essentially with a mirror, right? A reflection they see of themselves, which is a monster as well. They're misunderstood and alone. And one of my favorite quotes from Junot Diaz compares our being the Latinx community's lack of representation on the screen as having ingrained in us a feeling of otherness, that we're out of the norm and that we are a monster.
Yeah, because you don't see a lot in films and stuff like that, so it's like the perception of what is beautiful is not what you're seeing, so there's just like that natural, like, where are we?
Yeah.
Where are me? Where's me?
Yeah, so this is his quote, which I think is one of the best quotes ever. He says, you guys know about vampires. You know, vampires have no reflections in a mirror. There's this idea that monsters don't have reflections in a mirror, and what what I've always thought isn't that monsters don't have reflections in a mirror. It's that if you want to make a human being into a monster, deny them at the cultural level any reflection of themselves. And growing up, I felt like a monster in some ways. I didn't see myself reflected at all. I was like, yo, is this something wrong with me? That the whole society seems to think that people like me don't exist. And part of what inspired me was this deep desire that before I died, I would make a couple of mirrors. That I would make some mirrors so that kids like me might see themselves reflected back and might not feel so monstrous for it.
Which is a very beautiful quote.
Yeah, and it's one of the quotes that, like, me personally, that has spoken to me as a creator of media, that, like, made me, understand why I always kind of felt like another. Like, because when you grow up with that lens of, like, not seeing yourself represented on a screen, you do feel kind of like a monster. Like, what is wrong with me that I can't be the heroine of the story, that I can't be the romantic interest, that I have to be the quirky, spicy Latina friend who is just there to support our main character on a journey. Yeah. So when you have that otherness and then you're confronted with someone who's very, very blatantly another, there's going to be an understanding there. And that understanding allows you to love them without any of, like, the weirdness of wanting to change them. Because you know what it means to also want to be loved for who you are. Like, it might be...
in a world that's, like, always trying to change you.
Exactly. Yeah. So it takes this very, very simplistic idea of, I just want to be loved for who I am, which is just a person of a different color than is seen as the big beauty of the world, and puts it on this bigger scale of, like, but what if I had scales? Like, I also want to be loved if I have scales. So today we're going to explore two films in which the men are confronted by monsters, and how they cope is very interesting. Because
for sure. It's different, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's very different. It's interesting in that in order to shape a narrative around the monster love stories, we kind of need to reverse the gender normatives for these white men. Because both of our protagonists are white men in this. Yeah. And we find that in both films, we're going to talk about how they're shown to be a little more feminine in their, like, demeanors and, like, the actions that they take, their personalities, which allow them to properly appreciate the women in the story.
Yeah, they are more empathetic because of these factors.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that they have to, like, we have to change them because they can't be a traditional, like, male protagonist.
Well, you can't have a brutish Gaston, like, Beauty and the Beast time. Yeah. You have to have, like, a more sensitive, more... I'm not going out hunting and killing all these big things and the talk of the town. I'm this, like, nice, sensitive guy who's, like, here and he's... Yeah. I don't know how to fish, but, like, I'm going to try because I love you.
Yeah. He's, like, like, when you're even thinking about the main character guy from Corpse Bride, right? Like, he's, like, this, like, squirrely little kind of shell of a man. And because of that, he's able to fall in love with a literal corpse. Right? If he was, like, the big burly man who's, like, super handsome and can get whatever he wants, there's no way he would be put into the predicament of being able to fall in love with a corpse bride. So we have to, like, take them away and put them in a position and make them a person that is susceptible to feeling otherness and to feel
society
empathy.
Doesn't let the big burly strong man have emotions.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
You're not allowed.
You have to be, like, a little feminine to do it, or just a little different. So by making them that way, they can now see these women for who they are and fight for them because they've opened themselves to it. Yeah. Which is interesting, you know, that we have these films that traditionally had women as the protagonist, and to see how we have to kind of change it for a male reversal. To be a protagonist is kind of cool, but also a little sad, and just speaks to the fact that toxic masculinity in the world is affecting us in that way.
But it's just really interesting. Yeah. Because you have the whole falling in love with somebody who's already a monster. And there's a lot of layers there. And I think it's somewhat easier to fall in love with somebody who is already a monster because that's a part of their personality. You're meeting them and you're like, oh, you're pretty cool, but I'm not engraved in, like, who you are yet. Yeah. And then as you're getting to know them, you find out, like, oh, fun fact, I have a bunch of tentacles that sometimes come out if I don't take my medicine that is blood of babies or animals or something. You know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh. I get a little weird. Call it hangry, if you will. Yeah. And that's just part of who they are. So you're getting to know them, and that's already your perception and understanding of
that's
who
just another part that you're learning. It's like, oh, I'm allergic to peanuts, and also I turn into a tentacle beast at night. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take those two, compartmentalize those things, and I'm going to love you because I know that's who you are.
Yeah, it's already the understanding. You're not getting thrown off after years of loving somebody and thinking you know who they are, and then them suddenly being something different. Where what we'll see with Honeymoon is you're not falling in love with a monster. You were in love already, and now the person you loved has transformed.
Think like I married a monster from outer space.
It's literally that. Oh my god, Gabe, you're so smart. Look at you be. Those are my best friends. So it's just a lot harder because there's this sense and idea that that person that you did love was taken from you. Yeah. That it's not... You're introduced and you're falling in love with somebody who's already a monster. The person you've loved and known is gone. So there's this sense of mourning and grieving, and it just makes it a lot harder to accept. Or like the acceptance is some sort of like denial in the sense that like you can't let go of who that person was. So we see in Santa Clarita Diet, it's like a more fun version of that, but you have this sense of like her personality's still kind of there and she's kind of doing all this really messed up stuff, but it's quirky and weird, but also like I love her and I'm just going to accept it. Like, we're not going to talk about it so much when it's happening, but like, this is the person I chose to spend my life with. And it's weird, but okay.
Yeah, we're working through it. Because she gets more confidence in Santa Clarita Diet. Like, she always had essentially the monster in her was just a repressed monster. And now she has an excuse to let it out by being a monster.
Are just going.
Yeah. She definitely talks about impulse control a lot.
Yeah, it's like if you were a vampire but you still went home to your family.
Yeah.
Like you're always like, you can't do that, they're not gonna accept you. It's like, no, you just still go home to your family.
What if they
totally
did?
Chill. Like this is what happens when they do.
Yeah.
It's okay, I'm gonna stay. My family's broken, but it's still good.
They stay.
Yeah. So you see kind of like it's the idea that what the person's going through, you're helping them through it, like an illness or a rough period or some sort of like change in personality that's triggered by something, with the hope and expectation that through doing that, you'll be able to bring that person back, or that who they were still exists in some way. So you can deal with the other stuff. Like you're okay with it because you still have that connection. So it's like if you're having a midlife crisis, you're buying all these new cars, you're going a little crazy, you dyed your hair, you shaved your head, I don't know, but you're still for it. You're like, the person I love is still in there. It's totally fine. I'm going to just put that in my pocket, we're going to walk through, we're going to live. Or like they lost a loved one or like a child and you just have to like, it's really tough, but they're still there. You love them. Medical illness, accident, like that kind of stuff. Stuff that's out of their control, but that has happened. Yes, that's
inevitably going to change you.
Yeah. And you adapt. It's an adaptive kind of love, and it's kind of beautiful in that way, where it's like, yes, they are something different, but they're still them, and it's totally cool. But then you get the little less adaptable version of that, where the reason that you're still there is because it's like, oh, this is crazy. I can't really accept it. I have not gone through my 5 or however many stages of grief that there are. And that like, this is just the reality and I can't really cope with it. I can't deal with the loss of this person. So I'm going to stay. I'm not going to act like this is real. So you have like the denial trying to mimic your old life while your wife is tied to the washing machine because she ate your neighbor and she's not person anymore. She's just rabid and crazy, but you can't get rid of them. Or like if your daughter turned into a zombie and you kept your daughter in a room and you fed her your neighbors or people that passerbys because you love your daughter and you just can't accept that she's gone. You can't kill the zombie. So you're in denial and you're just like, all right, this is love. It's totally fine, guys. Like it's different. Yeah. But we're not going anywhere.
Or you'd think that like you have a second chance too. Like, because you would have, so if you're supposed to be going through those stages of grief, but instead it's almost like a weird like coping mechanism. It's just denial. Like you're just stuck in denial.
Yeah, you still have dinner with the wife that's tied up. You're just like, it's okay. Here's your human.
Yeah, that's not
I'm going to eat my chicken nuggets. It's totally fine. Like everything's fine.
Yeah, you can't heal because you're not able to actually let go. You're stuck in that one part.
So you're like grieving the loss, but you can't get past the loss because they're still there. Yeah. And then there's, I guess, the idea that the transformation's not their fault, and maybe you failed them in some way, and this is your chance for redemption. So, like, it's a fresh start. Like, maybe you weren't there for your daughter, and that's why she got bit by that zombie, and now you have to protect the zombie version of your child because you have to make up for all that time that you weren't there. Yeah. It's your fault, so you have to. Or you get the fun version, which is, I married a monster from outer space, where you didn't really know them that well to start with. So, like, this is the reality of who you're with now. Mm-hmm. Guess that's what we're doing, and it takes you a little too long to notice that they're different.
Because you didn't know who they were to begin with.
Yeah.
That's how much you did not know them.
And it's, like, hard because it's, like, how well do you know the person that you're with? That's just that stress of, like, do you really know who you're married to?
Yeah, it's like the button.
Dating, or who's in your bed.
Like, or button. It's like, do you really know your husband? It's like, okay, hold on. Probably.
If we got married 100 years ago, I don't know. Because it was probably not my choice.
Yeah.
I'm just here now, but hopefully he's not an alien who's trying to... But then also what's funny about that movie is that, like, she had no empathy for the situation. Mm-hmm. It was like the reverse. Like, you're saying he's a monster, but you don't care at all. You want him dead. You want your old husband who you didn't really know anyway back.
Yeah, and that's a different kind of loving monster, or just like monster human romance, is that Mars needs to repopulate trope, which happens in quite a few different films and media.
Yeah, you know, got that alien pregnancy thing going on.
Yeah, nah, son.
It's just a lot more different when it's love of your life has been stolen from you. Do you stay or not?
Do you stay or should you go now?
And I think, honestly, the way it goes is if that person still is kind of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're a mindless beast person who has no semblance of who they once were, and they're murdering and doing bad stuff all the time, and they don't actually care about you anymore, probably not. Mm-hmm. But if they, like, still care about you and want you around, and they're just kind of, like, different and weird now, probably, yeah. That's where I'm at.
Nice.
Films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those films. And all that spooky stuff.
Love in the Time of Monsters. Yeah. So we watched some things, as we want to do. Yeah. We watched...
With our eyes.
Yeah.
Watch them.
So we watched Spring.
Which was great. Mm-hmm. It was really good.
And we watched Honeymoon. Spring, I felt like, made me feel the same way I felt about Only Lovers Left Alive. Where it was like, oh, okay, this is going to be whatever. And then I really, really loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, because it was, like, cute but creepy, but also like, oh, this
was pretty sweet.
Love happens, guys, when you least expect it.
Like, really quick, too.
Yeah, 5 days.
Yeah. So we watched Spring. So Spring is about a young man in a personal tailspin who flees from the U.S. to Italy, where he sparks up a romance with a woman harboring a dark, primordial secret. And this is directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who have done other kind of interesting horror films where it's more cerebral in the horror aspect. Like, it's more like thought-provoking and less like, look at this gross stuff. Like, and there's gross stuff in here, but it's still like, that still seems kind of passive. Like, it just seems like a necessary part.
Science and love and like, I've been alive for 2,000 years.
Yeah. Like, so what I found Spring to be, it's essentially the film Before Sunrise, but with a Lovecraftian monster in it.
Which we're just totally for.
Yeah. The tagline for it is Love is a Monster, which I thought was really cute. And it is. If you're in it, it's a monster. Yeah, it's just like Before Sunrise in that, like, you have this, like, American guy, and over, like, a very short time period, love is established with this, like, alluring woman from another country. When you're looking at that, it's just kind of, like, cute. And then there's this whole other, like, crazy, like, science aspect to it, which is very cool.
Whoa, what's happening to her legs? Ooh, I don't know about this. It's weird.
It's super weird. It starts really subtle of just, like, oh, her eye looks weird. Oh, her skin's a little scaly. Oh, this. And she's, like, injecting herself with stuff, and you're like, what's happening?
She's probably fine. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's lots of spoilers this episode, guys. I do recommend watching it. You definitely should. And even if you know, because, like, I knew she was a monster, because if you read anything about it, it's like, she's a monster. But it's still so nice. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. It's just like, why are you so about me, guy? Like, this is probably not a good time. We've known you, like, 5 days, but, like, you love me. That's cool.
Exactly. Like, and that's one of the things, too, is, like, spoilers. So she is a... I don't know, is it centuries? Yeah, because it was, she was there for...
2,000 years.
Yeah.
So she's 2,000 years old.
Yeah. So she is 2,000 years old, and she is immortal because she, every 20 years, which is not a long time to have to do this.
Like,
that's really annoying. Every 20 years, she essentially gets knocked up and then gives birth to herself.
Yeah, mixed with
whoever it was. Yeah, because that's what babies are.
Yeah.
So she's essentially like her, she's like her great own daughter. It's weird. Yeah. I'll let you just like sit in that for a minute. So the thing is, if she doesn't give birth to herself, she can stay the version that she is now, but that means she gives up her immortality. Yeah. So there's this part where, and it's that cliche of like, if she experiences love, and they put this whole science aspect to it, which was kind of cute, but the gist of it is that if she falls in love, then she can stay who she is, and then she's giving up her immortality. And at one point she says to him, she's like, I'm not going to give up immortality for a guy I met a few days ago.
Yeah.
Which is so real. But again, this is before sunrise. So we, in that short amount of time of like a week, do find love, which is super cool.
When you least expect it, it just happens.
It does, especially in this. So Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who are the directors of this, claim they wrote the film as a counterpoint to Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, which is Interview with a Vampire, in that it's about a creature who actually enjoys its strange condition. So unlike the brooding vampires that are loathsome and hate themselves, and even unlike Adam, who, I guess he didn't hate himself, but he just hated being alive forever. Yeah. Right? We have a monster who is appreciative of what they are, and to some degree, and also intrigued. Like, she wants to learn.
Yeah, she wants to, like, know why. Like, it's not so much... She was saying even about vampires, it's like... They thought people were vampires because of this, like, medical condition that they later were able to figure out what it was. So she was, like, hoping to eventually figure out what she was and why. Yeah. And, like, in the 2,000 years that she had existed, that she had not been given that opportunity yet.
Yeah, and she's just waiting, which is, I think is really cool. Like, they took this very supernatural thing, and she's making it... She's trying to justify it with, like, pseudoscience. Yeah. Like, evolution and stuff. And it's super interesting. And the fact that she's, like... understanding that the world develops at this one pace, and that she's just willing to like wait it out and find out. Yeah. And knows that like the world is going to change and the knowledge will come. It's just a matter of time, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's like the inevitability of like self-acceptance and understanding who you are.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, usually
everyone hopes.
Usually in these stories we have a boy who's the beast, but in this one we're given a female beast who's trying to solve her own life. Yeah. Evan pursues her, and in the beginning of their relationship, Louise attempts to bring him home for a nameless one-night stand. Mm-hmm. But Evan refuses this and said he wants something more, which is like, this is where we have that swap. Right?
Yeah, we're like, that's not masculine. Yeah. And it's like, it can be.
Yeah, and rude. It's even just different from the falling in love with a monster trope, too. Mm-hmm. But it's like, he... like approaches her at the bar and she's like, come home with me. And he's just like, no, you might be a stalker. You might kill me. Like he is aware of like danger, which again, men feel like they're invincible and there's no way that anything can hurt them. So
you're saying I could have sex this one time and you're not like, I'm not even going to think that murder could happen. I'm just going to go.
I'm just thinking sex. Yeah. And in this, it's funny that he is like, no, I don't want that. Yeah. And, then she's eventually,
like, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and then she's pursued, which is cool.
Yeah, it was nice. They had a cool, cute little like meet cutes and like doing stuff. I was like, oh, you like care, even though like, why do you care? But like, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, and as far as like horror movies go, it's horror in that there's some really graphic, gross things happening because she's like an animal in ways. Yeah, but it really wasn't like scary in a traditional sense of like it spooked you.
Yeah, there was like 1 or 2 seconds where it's like, ooh, but then it was like totally fine again. Yeah. Like, all right, cool.
Like, we cool.
There's definitely some violence. A penis is eaten off of a body.
Oh, yeah, but you don't see that. You see after the fact.
Yeah, and it's like this gross man who's like trying to assault this woman who seems totally not okay.
Yeah, of course. And he's American, of course. I think another thing about it was that like Only Lovers Left Alive, you have these supernatural elements, but it really is just like a catalyst, and the it just gives us the opportunity to talk about bigger things.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, I'm a vampire, let's talk about vampires. And in this, it's like, I'm a monster, let's talk about monsters. It's like, let's talk about science, let's talk about evolution, let's talk about what love is. It's a chemical.
Something worth dying for.
Yeah. And then even like kind of talks about like the beauty of being mortal as well. Yeah. So like in his ability is his attempt to keep her as who she is and with him, essentially giving up her mortality to be with him, because he tells her like, I think you could be the love of my life. And it's like, okay, you think. And he's like, why aren't you in love with me after a day?
And there's he like talks about like what's nice about being mortal and like the appreciation you have for life from that is like,
yeah,
you
and
could die.
It's beautiful.
It makes things more meaningful.
Yeah,
it's not just another mundane day.
Yeah,
because you don't have forever. You have to make it count.
Yeah,
every second.
One of the quotes I really enjoyed was that he says, "Every cold makes you appreciate every moment you were well," which is like, when you think about it in a broader sense, even it's like every time you experience something really sad and tragic, it also allows you to appreciate the times when you were not sad and there was not tragedy, right? You can better appreciate that because your life is so like small, right? Yeah. Where if you have like forever, everything becomes kind of meaningless and nothing holds as much strength and like impact to you.
Yeah, you can just do whatever you want. You can love everybody. You can have sex, eat food. It doesn't matter.
You can be a vampire. Yeah, mortality essentially gives us a purpose.
Where it is kind of more beautiful that like it's not forever. Everything kind of does mean more. You're here.
Yeah, and when you think about it, love kind of means more when you're mortal because you only have this amount of time. And if you decide to choose to live with one person for the rest of your very small life, that means something. That means something more than if you're like, I'm going to live forever. Let's get married for a little bit. Like, you know, it's like, I only have this amount of time.
And
I'm wasting it on you, essentially. Like, I am spending it all on you.
Isn't all love just time well wasted?
Yes, exactly.
That's a song I wrote when I was, like, 17. I wrote those lyrics in the song. Because
you were a little vampire.
17. Yeah. Aren't we all just considered time well wasted?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully you're not a waste of time. Yeah. Spring is great. I definitely recommend it. Highly recommend it. I want you to watch it.
Yeah. And I don't know if we... Do we recommend the next one? I don't know. We'll get there. But we did watch another movie, Honeymoon, also from 2014. A newlywed couple finds their late country honeymoon descend into chaos after Paul finds B wandering and disoriented in the middle of the night within the forest.
Yeah.
So essentially you have people who know each other and have fallen deeply in love and are totally about it, transformed into like this very horrific... What has happened to my wife? I loved her. I knew her. We had this life together, and now she is hell of who she once was. Yeah. And it's really sad because it's like we had this really wonderful relationship. We got married. There was like a purpose, and like aliens happened. Spoilers. Yeah. Aliens happened, and instead of love happening, aliens happened, and a bunch of awful stuff. And now my wife's all different and acting all weird, and I'm really upset about it.
Yes.
It's very hard to accept this version of love. Like, he has this whole crisis where he's like, you smell like her, you taste like her, you have her toes, but you're not the woman I love. You're not her. Where is she? I'm upset.
Yeah, like, this isn't the person that I married.
Yeah.
Who is it?
It was like 5 days ago. Yeah. I married you and we were totally cool. Yeah. What happened, man? Yeah. There's a lot of theories. Yeah. That the director said, or writers was like, nah, that's not what it was about. But
it was about aliens.
It was just about aliens.
But again, you don't always know what you're saying sometimes. Yeah. And so it definitely is like a Married Monster from Outer Space, where we get to explore the allegory of the rude surprises in store for people who think they know each other before joining hands in marriage.
Yeah. You think you know your wife. Do you? Do you know your husband, or is he an alien? It's like, no, they're both human, but then bad stuff happens.
Yeah. And just like in Evan in Spring, we have to change our male protagonist so that he can be susceptible to the situation. And so Paul is like constantly emasculated by B in it. Mm-hmm. She knows how to fish. She's killed things with her own hands, like fish. She teases him about being afraid of things. And it's a really interesting change in dynamic. And honestly, it makes B's transformation into a fragile woman later that much more drastic.
Or like you really notice how different she is. When it's like the woman I loved who was strong and like she's like stabbing herself and like not knowing who you are. You don't have to make French toast. Yeah. Where's the coffee? You said you make coffee. I don't understand. Yeah. I have to take care of you and help you and save you and what?
Yeah, she went from being someone who was very confident, who essentially, like, she had the hold of the relationship. Like, she chose this location. She wanted, like, he says, you wanted to get married, right? Like, she wanted the wedding. She essentially has like a lot of the control in the relationship and is very assertive. And to go from that to being someone who's very unsure
and like insecure and like scared
and paranoid, like constantly wanting to please him and like make him happy, which was like because she's trying to put up this illusion that she's okay. But it was more than that too. Yeah. It was like she had totally changed into this like different woman. I mean, it's interesting because it happened so soon after they're married. Yeah. Like, that's a statement in and of itself. Of, like, do you really know a person?
Yeah, there's, like, this doubt where it's like, he thinks he so knows who she is and is so thrown off and, like, troubled by this. And then she's like, I know you, right? Like, this is what our life was. I loved you. Yeah. I wanted to get married. Like, terrified of like this reality that she's in. Yeah. But there's so many theories of why this is the way it is. So I know that there's one that she's pregnant. That's one. The one that I'm going to talk about though, which is my times, is one that is like she was pregnant, but then had an abortion, but then died during that. Like it was like a self-inflicted abortion that like got infected and she died before they actually had their wedding. So a theory on Reddit essentially says that this all happened right before they were about to go on their honeymoon and she died because she got pregnant and they weren't ready to have kids. And she essentially tried to like at home abort the baby without telling him. What this is saying that the reason she got so sick is because like she was like infected, recovering and infected, but then in this case dies before they go on their honeymoon. And then he's going on their honeymoon to like pretend that everything's going to be okay and that she's still there. Yeah. But then he kills himself because he can't live with the reality of what happened. Yeah. And that's him drowning himself in the lake. Yeah. I'm saying that's not what happened, but that's a theory that exists.
Yeah. And there's also the theory that like just the idea of her getting pregnant is also a kind of representation because like their first like disagreement that they have in the film is when in the morning he says like you need to rest your womb and she's like
such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, she's like, why?
I get we're married, but like we don't gotta have kids right away.
That's weird. Chill out. And he's like, oh, it's because of like how great the sex was and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, that's not the part of me that you had sex with. 1, 2, no. And she's like, I'm not ready to have kids and all this stuff. And the thing is, like with pregnancy and with him referring to it so soon, is kind of like she loses her autonomy. In a way, when you become like essentially you're just like you married me just so we can have kids. Yeah, like, that's my role. That's my role in this. I'm no longer a person, and that's the first time we really see like a diminished B. Right? Yeah, that's the only time we see her insecure and uncomfortable.
And this is like pre-incident, so that's like a big deal. Where you're just like, oh, why?
Yeah. So then, if she is pregnant, right? She's losing herself. She transforms. She changes, and it could even kind of be like just a form of depression that comes with that. Mm-hmm.
And then his whole theory initially, like when she comes back from the woods, is that like she was raped by this old family friend. Mm-hmm. And that's why like he's still like, I love you. Like I'm trying to help, but you have to let me help you. Like we have to go to the hospital. Like clearly something bad happened. Just tell me what happened. Like it'll be okay. You can tell me and we'll be okay. Yeah. And she's like, I can't tell you. I don't remember what happened. I'm traumatized. I don't know. I'm fine. Stop telling me I'm not fine.
Yeah. And she's definitely, like, suffering from some, like, PTSD symptoms. Yeah. For sure.
Like, I don't think she was intentionally trying to mislead him at all. I think she just, like, couldn't accept or grasp what had happened to her. It was just so traumatizing that, like, if this was, like, or, like, a metaphor for rape, that, like, it was so awful that she's not ready to talk about it, and like stop making her have to talk about it right away.
Yeah.
It's kind of like where she's at.
Yeah.
Or like, give me time. Like, I will talk to you about it, but I can't right now.
Yeah. He definitely isn't letting her like work through her own stuff, and he confronts her a lot. And if she was raped and then therefore was pregnant too from that, her like forcibly trying to have an abortion like in the bathroom at some point also could be related to that, and her being like, get it out of me, like that. There's a lot of heavy things that are happening in there that can't just be just cause.
Well,
even though that's what they said it was. I'm telling you, you're wrong yourself. Again, just like Contracted, you're saying things even when you don't know you're saying things. Don't put,
they were like, okay with it.
Don't put an alien tree root like being inside a woman's vagina if it's not going to mean something. Stop putting stuff in ladies' parts and saying it doesn't mean something. Directors.
Well, the lady director specifically said that, like, she wasn't trying to say it, but, like, she's okay, I think, that that's how people took it. But that she was really influenced by Polanski and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but Polanski's in the sense of Rosemary's Baby, where it's, like, the devil impregnated her. Mm-hmm. In this case, aliens impregnated her. And that's just what's happening. Yeah. So aliens didn't impregnate her. It was not consensual. She was raped in the woods and given alien babies. Yeah. And it's very upsetting, and she doesn't know how to cope with that. Yeah. And that they're going to take her because now they're hers. They're theirs. Yeah. And similar to Rosemary's Baby, that's like the devil's now the baby's now. That's cool. Yeah. That's what it's about. Trying to be real transparent, and then like everyone like saying that it's other stuff, metaphors. She's like, no, it's aliens, guys. Yeah, it is aliens, but aliens are a metaphor. Mm-hmm. Aliens are always a metaphor. Yeah. There's not real, like, what are aliens doing then? What's the point? It's a metaphor. When she says, something bad happened to me in the woods, one, it's the most impactful statement she says. She says it twice. One, she says it weird. She says it like a little child. She's finally confronting him and, like, telling him what happened to her. She's finally coming like clean about her situation. Something bad happened to me in the woods. And then she explains essentially that she was raped in there. She was brought out there. She was taken advantage of. She was hurt. And now she is broken. She is different. And there's that's something essentially inside of her. Yeah. Ugh. And the thing is, like, okay, if you're taking the analogy of rape, right? In the whole form of like the ejaculation, it's now inside of her and she's forever changed. Then you take the whole idea that she has that thing and it's like no matter what she does, it's in there. Mm-hmm. She's different now. She's become this monster. And it's this thing that like he won't ever understand her and he'll never be able to like accept it and help her through it really because he's not really accepting that it happened that way. Yeah. Like, she's trying to explain, like, no, I'm different. Like, I'm not, like, you keep saying I'm not B, and it's like, that's true. I'm not. Yeah. And that's okay. I'm not B. Because when you encounter something like that, if you go through something traumatic like that, that causes you to have PTSD, if you have the loss of a child, if you are raped, if like something, like if there's a accident, something like that happens and you're transformed into another person because of the circumstances, it's like, do you still love that person? Yeah. They're not going to go back to being who they were. And the problem comes from you trying to do that. Yeah, and that's just his whole thing. It's like he just couldn't accept... Like, he knew something happened and he wanted to help her through it, but, like, he couldn't accept the reality that the person that he's trying to help through it is no longer the same. He's like, I just need to help you get better. And it's like, you're not always going to get fully better. You're just going to get different. And that's just what... You can't go back to who you were. Yeah. Once you pass that threshold, essentially. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like when you're thinking about the story Annihilation in the film, is like that's just this big metaphor for the fact that people change irreparably. Things happen to you, you change, you become a different person, and it's like confronting who you are on the other side. Yeah. And he's like looking at her on the other side. Something bad happened to her in the woods, and he's like, give me back my person, and she can't. Yeah. So the only way out of that is for him to die. Yeah. Essentially. Like, if he had accepted that, like, and believed her when she said, the aliens are coming, did stuff to me, I'm not me anymore, I'm different, I can't be with you, I want to protect you, he could leave. He could have left her. Like, yeah, part of it is the way that it's presented to him, though, in a lot of ways, is that she's not her. But, like, that we don't remember. That there's something outside of her that's taken over her. I think that's, like, the part that he has, like, the hardest part grasping. It's not that she's just different. Yeah. It's that, like, this is an imposter. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where
that's
it gets
also
real.
a whole nother level. Yeah,
it's a
that's
whole
a married a monster
layer.
from outer space level. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where, like, the aliens have the real her, and then this is just some thing that they gave him to, like, that she's gonna murder him, and it's totally weird, and it's bad. Give me my wife.
Yeah. My wife.
But, like, there's definitely, like, that weird extra layer to it where you're like, ooh, this isn't her. This is or, like, they took her mind, and this is different now.
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah.
Either you love this new alien her, or you leave. She's different now.
Or she tries to hide you to save you.
In the water.
Yeah, where you breathe real good. Yes. You're a fish man. You'll totally be fine.
It's interesting that that's where both the husbands ended up in that film. Because it's like, what are these aliens that they can't see underwater? Also, what is the motive of these aliens? I really want to know. It's a very interesting thing. Because why was she trying to be an imposter for so long?
I think, like, well, if you're thinking of it in, like, a trauma sense, I think, like, she still is her. Yeah. But she's infected with this, like, trauma, but also, like, whatever was inside of her. Yeah. That's, like, and she's like, hypnotized and controlled by the light. So, and the alien people, like, they're hypnotizing her with the mind control. And all she does know that she's trying to cling to is who she was. So she's trying to, like, make it okay. And he's this connection to that. But they're going to destroy that because they have to take her. Mm-hmm. So she wants to make sure that she still has that connection to who she once was by saving him, protecting him, hiding him. And how she hides him is by drowning him. Yeah.
It's a good spooky film. I only recommend it if you are into horror films and spooky films. It's just, like, uncomfortable and stressful. It's incredibly stressful. And I think that's a big part of it, is that you're just really intensely stressed. And you're also really sad. Because you're watching her crumble and be this, like, shell to what she used to be. Yeah. And that's a really sad thing to go through and to watch. Yeah.
And then you're also, like, watching his, like, grieving her / lack of... Like, you see him losing his mind. Yeah. While she's also losing her mind.
Because she's, like, kind of gaslighting him, too. Like, you're being ridiculous. These are mosquito bites. It's like, you are bleeding quite a lot. Yeah. Please tell me. And to also feel betrayed. I don't know
who to be kind of, like, upset with. Because, like, you kind of are upset with him because you're like, she's clearly going through a lot. Like, let her get there. But at the same time, you're like, no, you got to knock her out and take her to the hospital. Because clearly stuff's not cool and she can't.
She's not dealing with it. Yeah.
Like, one of you's got to save one. Like, you got to do it. I don't know how to feel. Am I mad at him for not letting her get there? Or am I mad at him for, like, giving her too much time to get there? You need to knock her out with some Benadryl and take her to the hospital. Yeah. I don't know which one. I don't know which one I feel. Yeah.
It's really sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sad all around.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, feelings. Yeah, I said feelings. Let's talk about feelings. Okay. And all that spooky stuff. I love spooky stuff.
All right. So if you like it, it's when will my reflection show who I am inside? Mulan. Yeah. Or if you don't like it, it's we don't remember.
We don't remember.
That was so traumatic. There's, like, a scene and he's like asking her stuff.
Why are you two?
Yeah, he's asking her, like, about a thing and she goes, we don't remember. Which is clear that she's not just her. Something else is going on. Which is honestly one of the creepiest, like, sentences that has ever occurred in a film. Which is very alien-like. It's good. It's a good alien film. Yeah.
Where it's like she's an imposter, but it's not her fault. Mm-hmm. Like, she's just trying, man. I remember.
He's like, why? Okay. So for this topic of falling in love with monsters, or loving monsters rather, because sometimes they're already a monster, sometimes they're becoming a monster. How you feel?
When will my reflection show? That's what I'm about. Like, I just think it's, like, good to have empathy and just, like, see people. Yeah. I see you. See people.
Yeah.
Try harder. People aren't always going to be perfect. People aren't going to be what you expect. People are just people, or like, energy is just energy. Be nice.
Yeah.
Care. Try. Open your mind.
Yeah. Well, think about how nice it is when you're seen, like when someone truly sees you, and allow that to drive you to then see people for who they are. And that is what empathy is, people. I just
really like empathy, so I'm just for empathy.
Yeah.
Guys,
absolutely.
For it.
Yeah, and I think the new way that we're approaching loving monsters is awesome. And I love that we took the old tropes and the old metaphors and we turned them on their head, and we have now made it positive. We have acknowledged that, yes, people are different. Yes, things are different. And now we can allow ourselves to love people for being people. Love is love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really happy we got past the whole you gotta fix somebody.
Yeah.
Like that loving somebody is fixing them. It's like, no, loving somebody is accepting them.
Yeah. Whether they're a monster to begin with, or someone you love is changed irreparably because of something that happened to them.
Yeah, it's just acceptance and like trying to understand and caring. And even if you don't understand, just like understanding you don't understand and still loving them and trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
being there.
Yeah.
Be an ally to the person you love.
Yeah, understand that life is about change and that things are going to change and people are going to be different. We all walk different walks of life. And yeah, just appreciating that a person is a person and loving them. Yeah. What about for the media that we've analyzed?
It was really interesting. I think I'm about it. Mm-hmm. I think there were parts that could have been better. Mm-hmm. But that's everything. Yeah. So I'm cool.
Yeah, I really liked Spring.
I like the flipping the narrative.
Yeah. I liked how bizarre that film was. I loved the science aspects of it. I loved that we got to explore it. I love that she was this 2,000-year-old being that still was very personable and still very human. And that, like, we could get a trip down memory lane. We get to see, like, oh, my ex-boyfriend painted me like this and that. Like, she had a very simple life for living 2,000 years. Like, she hasn't done anything crazy. Yeah,
like, she was an other, but, like, about the fact that she was an other.
Yeah.
And she was like, cool. This is just what life is. You exist, you do, you learn, you go, and hopefully I'll just, like, figure out who I am and, like, accept myself and love myself. Like, I'll know more about it. I'll know why.
I really like that both Only Lovers Left Alive and this one explore immortality in a really great way of, like, as using it as an excuse to learn more.
Yeah.
And to, like, explore more and to, like, try to better the world despite the fact that people are moving at the pace that they're moving.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Honeymoon, I enjoyed. I watched it twice.
It was, like, saying a lot, but, like, you weren't sure what it was saying exactly. So it was, like, it could be endless possibilities. Like immortality.
Interesting. They were both so different. And
they were both very different.
Yeah. Which is, like, exactly like what we were talking about. Like, we were like, okay, let's talk about falling in love with monsters or loving monsters. And then we found that situation is twofold. It's finding someone who's already a monster, established, loving them. And it's finding someone you already loved who's now different.
Yeah. So it's just, like, loving people for who they are.
Even when that person changes a little bit.
So, like, if something bad happens, like, so if your person that you're with, like, goes through a really traumatic event, still loving them, even though they're different now, like, it's gonna be different. And you either just actually did love them and want to help them get through it, or you don't. Yeah. Like, you were loving them because it was convenient. Yeah. Which one is it? So, that's cool.
Yeah. And then, there's also just, like, using otherness and showing that it can be loved. And let's put some more mirrors out there. Mm-hmm. Let's represent more people and more communities, and let's do it in a beneficial way, in a positive way that shows that everyone can be loved and can love.
Or maybe get married.
Yeah, maybe get married.
Like, don't, but maybe.
Don't get married, maybe do it. Hopefully they won't eat your kids.
And, like, maybe you guys will just, like, have a really great life.
Maybe they'll live forever, and that's beautiful. Okay, bye.
Bye.